60 feet below the surface, the rules of gravity change. You're weightless, suspended in a massive blue void, entirely disconnected from the world above. Access to that environment begins with a single piece of paper, the standard Scuba medical questionnaire. For many divers, it's the most stressful part of the pre-trip checklist. There's a common assumption that checking a single yes on this form, for say asthma, a past injury, or a heart condition, results in a permanent, lifelong ban from the sport. Modern diving medicine has moved past that all-or-nothing approach. A yes on the form is rarely a final rejection. Instead, it serves as a trigger for a more detailed conversation with a specialist. Physicians now focus on whether a condition is stable and predictable enough to withstand the unique stresses of the ocean. This shift makes risk management, rather than a perfect health record, the primary factor in determining who is cleared to dive. To make a determination, diving physicians evaluate every condition against 3 specific safety criteria. First, does the condition carry a risk of sudden loss of consciousness or incapacitation while you are submerged? Second, does your medical history increase the likelihood of your lungs or ears being injured by rapid changes in water pressure? And finally, will this condition physically or mentally prevent you from rescuing yourself or your buddy during an emergency? If a condition fails any of these tests and the risk can't be lowered through treatment, it becomes a complete bar to diving. At depth, there is no room to negotiate with a medical emergency. The most critical risks involve sudden failure. Underwater, loss of consciousness is almost always fatal. This is why uncontrolled epilepsy or recurrent unexplained fainting are absolute bars. If a seizure occurs underwater, drowning is immediate and nearly impossible to mitigate. The same logic applies to severe heart failure or serious arrhythmias. If a heart condition creates a risk of sudden incapacitation, the physical demands of diving make the ocean too dangerous to enter. However, conditions like a previous stroke or stable atrial fibrillation have moved into the relative clearance category. If successfully treated with no further progression, diving may be possible. Securing that clearance requires exhaustive testing by a specialist to confirm your stability. They must ensure you have no exercise intolerance and can handle a high-stress rescue scenario. When the risk involves losing consciousness, doctors look for total predictability. If a medical event's timing cannot be ruled out, the dive is a no-go. Pressure risks involve the physics of gas. As you move through the water column, the air inside your body expands and contracts, putting immense stress on your internal tissues. Structural issues like untreated lung cysts or a history of spontaneous collapsed lungs are hard stops. If these pockets of air expand during an ascent and rupture, they can force gas into your arteries, causing a lethal embolism. In the ears, permanent eustachian tube dysfunction is an absolute bar. If you cannot equalize the pressure in your head, a descent will eventually rupture your eardrums or trigger debilitating vertigo. Asthma is the most common concern in this category. If it's uncontrolled or triggered by the cold, dry air used in scuba tanks, it remains a major red flag. But mild asthma that is strictly managed and shows no reaction to exercise can often earn a relative clearance after a respiratory assessment. Physics doesn't allow for error. If your body's airspaces cannot safely handle the pressure of the water, you cannot dive safely. Reliability risks focus on functioning as a team member. In the water, you are your buddy's primary safety system. Conditions that impair judgment, like active psychosis, severe depression, or substance dependence, are absolute bars, compromising required split-second decision-making. Brittle diabetes with unpredictable glucose control is also a disqualifier. A sudden drop in blood sugar destroys your situational awareness, making it impossible to manage your depth or your air supply. Conversely, well-managed diabetes has become a common success story in dive medicine. Clearance brings a high logistical cost. Divers follow strict pre-dive testing protocols, carry emergency glucose underwater, and maintain highly coordinated buddy plans. For metabolic conditions, ocean access is a trade. You accept the added medical friction to ensure you remain a reliable partner rather than a liability. When we organize these conditions into a single matrix, the medical form functions as a filter for stability. It sorts every health concern by how much it compromises your safety under pressure. For those in the absolute column, with uncontrolled seizures or severe lung disease, the sport is closed. Your physiology simply cannot survive the specific failures these conditions cause at depth. In these cases, the safest path is to pivot to surface-level water sports, like snorkeling, where you can enjoy the ocean without the life-threatening risks of a pressurized environment. If you fall into the relative clearance column, the door is open, but requirements are higher. You can dive, but preparation will be more rigorous and more expensive than the average person's. You must decide if the effort of specialized testing and extra gear is worth the reward of the dive. Finally, remember that many red flags are temporary. A chest infection or a recent surgery isn't a permanent ban. It's a signal to wait until your recovery is total. Never lie on the medical form to avoid a yes. Bypassing this crucial safety filter doesn't remove the medical risk. It only ensures that if a crisis occurs, no one on the boat will be prepared to help you. Respect the medical form. It isn't a bureaucratic hurdle. It's an objective tool designed to make sure that every diver who descends has a calculated, reliable path back to the surface.